He's ready.
Can that see me from right here? Okay. So my name is Nate Cannon, second year electrical student. I made an alarm clock. Next slide. So I chose this because everyone needs help getting out of bed and you can always hit snooze versus, so my alarm clock will actually throw something out and you gotta get back and put it back in the alarm clock for it to turn off. I found one online and it had bad reviews, so I chose to do this. Next slide. Here's a picture of the alarm clock I found online, and so the propeller would go out. Next slide. So here's some of the reviews. Some people said it didn't work at all. The propeller didn't make the alarm go off, so I decided to make it better. Next slide. So I ordered a I2C time module for the clock, and I'm going to have an LCD display for the time. And I have push buttons right here, so I can change the time and the date. And here's the KLZ board that we've been using. And here's a servo. So I don't quite have the box of the alarm clock, but the servo is going to be mounted on a little tube, and it's going to have a marble, and the servo is going to move, the head's going to move, and the marble is going to flow out. That's going to be instead of the propeller, I'm going to have the marble, and the user has to get up, put that back in, and there's going to be a switch to turn the alarm back off. Next slide. So here's a system diagram, maybe on your nightstand or whatnot. And the real-time clock module is going to communicate with the microboard, and it's going to feed to the LCD. And I'm going to use the speaker that we used in micro for the speaker. And instead of, I changed that, but for the tennis ball, I'm just going to have a servo and the marble. Next slide. So for the KLZ Freedom port, it's 5 volts in. And then for the I2C module, it's either 0.55 VCC to 5 volts input. I think it operates at 32 kilohertz. Reading and writing to the I2C is 1 milliamp to 3 milliamps, so it's very low power. Next slide, please. So here's my not board layout, my schematic for the alarm clock. I'm going to have my pin headers, kind of hard to show you bigger, but here is where the time module is, and I need an SDA and SEL. That's to read and receive the time from the clock. Here's for the LCD header, and here's where I'm going to have 6 pins for the time. That's going to be external to the clock. And here is 3-pin header for my servo. That will move and actually go with the marble. And here's my push button layout. I'm going to have one for setting the time, one for changing the minutes and hours up and down, and the month and day. And that's going to be all connected through wires inside the actual clock. And that's going to come out over here. So there's going to be wires coming from here and there. Next slide, please. So I printed, here's my printed circuit board for the buttons. I have yet to print this board for the add-on board. Here's the LCD, as you can see. I made extra power pins for the board because I didn't want to have all these extra wires going to all these pins to make it more convenient. Here's my 7-pin header for the jumpers from here to here. And here is the servo, and here's the I2C time module. There's ground, VCC, SCL, and SDA, and there was 2 more pins for 32 kilohertz square wave. I didn't need those 2, so I cut those off the I2C. Next slide, please. So I2C is a master protocol. It uses SDA and SDL to communicate with time clock, serial clock line, and serial data line. Next slide. So here's this is the chip that actually does the timing. It's called DS321 or 3231. This is where the output for the SDL and SDA pins are. This is just another schematic I pulled up of actually. This is the chip on the time module, so it's not the entire time module. It's just one chip on it. Here's the rest of the chip schematic. Next slide, please. So here's some of the pinouts for the KLZ board, and I'm choosing to use. There's multiple SDA and SDL ports. I'm using these 2 ports. I'm using SDA and SDL ports on the chip.
And that's B0 and B1.
I think I might change. I think I'm using E21 or E20. No, it's something at 10 and 11. I think I might have changed it.
Is it on your schematic slide?
Yeah. No, it's not. It's on my code, but I don't have the picture of that up here.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Here's an example of the code. I think Dennis helped me out with some. So you have to send a 0 to start writing to it. So for all the minutes, seconds, days, and hours, it's stored in an array, and that's in a constant for loop. It's not up here, but it's in receive array, and so that's going to be constantly writing to the LCD like a normal clock would. So I just have to store it into a buffer or an array, and I have to. It's constantly communicating, so it's constantly changing. Next slide, please. And that is the end. Any questions?
So you're doing something with the buttons. Can you describe what you're doing? First of all, does the button board work?
Yes, it does.
Oh, that's good. So you might have said it and I may have missed it, but can you go back to that picture of the button board and tell what those buttons do?
And one more, I think. So I'm gonna have like the first button is gonna be like setting the time, and like these. So if you hit this button in the for loop, this is gonna set the time, and this is gonna be hours, minutes, plus or minus. And then there's going to be, the last button is going to be to set it. And then another button, when it's out of the for loop, it's going to be able to set the alarm. And the same thing for those other 3 buttons for adding the minutes and the seconds, or minutes and the hours. And it's going to, another button to set it. And then when it's out of that for loop, I'm going to be able to set the date. So I'm going to use like minutes and seconds, or minutes and hours, plus or minus, and so it's not all going to be one for loop. These are going to be used for setting it in the hours.
Okay.
So I don't have like a bunch of buttons, so I can cycle the buttons through.
And the marble or the tennis ball, whatever you choose as the object,
Yeah.
is there a sensor or something that picks up that it's bad?
I was gonna use, I didn't have it up here, but I was gonna have like a push button.
Okay.
So it's just gonna be dropped in and it's gonna read it one time and then if it's grounded or connected, it's just gonna jump out of that loop.
Okay. Any other questions?
Have you tested this yet?
Tested this board,
No, like the clock and stuff.
the clock works, yeah.
Does?
Yeah, I have it to read minutes and hours for the time. I just gotta do one coding.
What about the marble?
Marble, no, I haven't done that yet.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.